Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am Connie King with the Black America Resource Directory, and we're here today to present some exciting information in which we will hope that it will help you meet your financial goals for 2023. I know we talk about resolutions and those kind of things, but we like to kind of look at them as goals, setting goals. So today we have a financial behaviorist with us. We have the pleasure of having Anita R. Johnson with us. She is the founder of Money Wisdom for Women. Anita has a tremendous passion to bring a sense of healing and understanding to people and businesses who have been through some stressful financial experiences. Anita helps her clients. She helped me, I know, including young and inspiring professionals, adults, families, and business owners to find and create a healthy money mindset to strengthen their relationship. I know when Anita and I first met, we had talked about how money and we relate to that. If you were African American and you went to some of the churches when you were younger, you may have heard the minister say that the poor you would have with you always, and money is the root of all evil. So we grow up with some of those psychological misconceptions that it's not okay to be wealthy or to find wealth. So that's kind of what we started talking about. And lo and behold, Anita is a financial therapist and behaviorist. So when we talked about it, we were in the right space. And I'd like to introduce everyone to Anita R. Johnson.
Well, thank you, Connie, for inviting me to be here. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk about what my work is and my passion about money.
And some of those things we talked about mental health, and we relate things to mental health, and we may talk about mental health and how art heals. This financial therapy is part of a 6-part series that the Black America Resource Directory is hosting. We also in the past talked about coping and coping skills. We talked about how art heals. Now we're talking about financial therapy. In the upcoming months, we'll be talking about how music and drama also plays a part in therapy. So we can look at every aspect of our lives and see how therapeutic or therapy can help resolve some of the issues and help us move and navigate in ways in which we may not have been able to think about in the past. Would you say that that would be something that in today's climate that you see more and more people in need of or looking for financial therapists in that regard?
Yeah, I do. What happens is that a lot of people are dealing with higher prices and inflation and gas prices and so forth. But this is nothing new. We've all, people have had concerns or things about their finances and can't quite get their hands around it. And so what happens is it's just not spreadsheets and budgets and credits and all those things. It's our mentality when it comes to money. You and I talked about how in the African American community, the root of all evil, money is the root of all evil. You should wear your poorness on your sleeve and wait till you get to a certain point, and then okay, you're going to be wealthy, and how it's really bad to be wealthy. And then so that's that part. But then you also have the policies that have affected that particular group of people over the years. The redlining, the banks that have failed, uh, insurance scams, health scams, all of those things have affected the mindset when it comes to money. And then, you have the media that says, hey, if you don't have a house and 2.5 cars and 4 kids, then something's wrong with you. And so you have those things that affect us mentally in the financial realm. So we have to talk about, and then the way we grew up. Were there fights in the house? Did somebody control the money from the other person? Or were you a single parent? So all of those things play into the mental mindset of folks when it comes to our money.
One of the things that I took a look at, and it's kind of almost like that's one of the reasons why we kind of chose to use goals as opposed to resolutions,
Mhm.
because I know that for years, the first of the year, I'm gonna start my diet, and that's gonna be my resolution for the year. And I'll do good January and February and maybe March, but by the time April, May, or June comes around and the end of the year, I've fallen back
Mhm.
into those habits that I was
Mhm.
trying to avoid.
Mhm.
And sometimes I think we can relate our financial situation kind of like in the same light. You may start off in January saying, okay, I'm going to set aside X amount of dollars. I want to save. These are some of the things that I want to do with the money. And we find ourselves kind of falling back into those old habits because we don't have the I would imagine uh, the proper or the information or the education in order to avoid these pitfalls that
Mhm.
because certain things become cyclical. It happens and we see it reoccurring and reoccurring, and
Mhm.
then you can't climb yourself out of this situation that you put yourself in, because now you have an economy that, hey, the gas prices, as you indicated earlier, things that were unforeseen.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
now you're being kind of deviated just to kind of try to make it from paycheck to paycheck. I
Mhm.
mean, I was once at that point where I didn't have a whole lot of extra to spare, and I counted on my paycheck every week in order to make it, until I got to the point where I was able to take a look and become serious about it, once I had a family and so on and so forth. So some of those things also are changing. If you change the mind, will you change the behavior? And those are the things that I think we're kind of trying to take a look at to see how we can assist our community in making some of those financial decisions.
Right. Well, one is not exclusive to the other. So you have those unhealthy habits that you have been doing for many, many years, right? And so, yes, you're going to fall back into, all of a sudden you got this spreadsheet that looks beautiful, which you already had before, because everybody can budget, anybody can budget. And one of the things we talk about is budget is money on a diet. So nobody wants to do that. So we call it a financial spending plan, which more is a positive word,
Okay.
right? And so you have to break your unhealthy habits. Doesn't mean that they're not going to pop back up because you've been doing them 30, 40 years, but you also have to work with your mindset, and you also have to work with your financial spending plan. So one is not exclusive than the other. So when someone comes to me and they want, like you say, reoccurring all the time, I'm back in that same rut I was in before, and I'm still living from paycheck to paycheck. Well, we kind of go with the mindset. We're kind of looking at what you're spending on what, because you'd be surprised, people. I remember when I started this journey years ago for myself, uh, I was spending 25, $30, $40 on a cup of coffee a month. I didn't realize that until I started putting pen to paper. And if you take 25, $30 and put it in some kind of investment, And investing is easy now because you have Robinhood, right? You can go and you can invest on Robinhood, right? And so if you take that amount of money and instead of not saying you don't ever have to have coffee, right? You don't ever have to buy coffee, but you bring the number down.
Okay.
Now you've done two things. You have changed your habit. You have gotten a new mindset when it comes to investing, and then it's a positive thing that is going. So there's a lot of things that go into working with someone to have them improve their mindset, improve the way they look at their money, improve their relationship, find out who they are, what kind of person, what kind of money habits do they have, and kind of work through that. First, you got to get to the meat of it, which how were you raised? What's your relationship? How did you grow up? And once they realize why they do what they do with their money, then the light becomes illuminated for them.
One of the things that we are trying also to shed light on with the series, the 6-part series, in terms of how art heals, we were trying to expose the fact that you can use art as a form of therapy, but also take a look at the art in and of itself and see if we can start looking at generational wealth. And if you look at some of the past millionaires and billionaires and people who have amassed a great amount of wealth, if you look at portraits and paintings, purchasing Picassos and Rembrandts and all type of paintings that they can leave as legacy. So we're talking about also taking some of the art in terms of, and I'm speaking specifically in terms of how art heals, and looking to see how we can pass those beautiful pieces and keep them in the family as part of our legacy wealth. Well, financials are, to me, the same thing. I remember that my dad used to take a binder, just like a notepad, and he would write down his monthly bills, his income and expenses, because we didn't have computers. And that is something that he passed on to us. Write it down, what you're spending, make an income column, make an expense column, and then at the end of the month, you can see. So even if you don't have access to like an Excel spreadsheet or a computer, you can do something as simple as journaling it and just keeping a record of it. But one of the things that we want to look at also in regards to finances is how do we begin to be in a position to leave our children or our grandchildren or our great-grandchildren wealth opportunities. What are some of those things look like? You talked about investment. So is it something where that, hey, we can pass that on down to our families? Because we don't have sometimes in our community an Uncle Bob where we can go and get $100,000 if we want to start a business. We may have to go through other channels. So if we at our level here today in 2023 say that, hey, we're going to start moving in the direction of generational wealth or legacy wealth, so that we can, take care of our communities and so on and so forth. Are those things that are kind of things that we can start putting in place as African Americans?
Well, one of the things, so I have a ebook that's going to be coming out this year, and I'm collaborating with a financial planner. And the name of this ebook is The Financial Miseducation of the Negro. And the miseducation actually deals with the fact about generational wealth. And it talks about how these other things, insurance schemes and all kinds of things have plagued the African American community. And one of the things that he told me that has stuck with me, because I talked about generational wealth as well. Generational wealth is 100 years from now. It is not today. It's 100 years from now, and which means that you and I can earn all the money, leave it for our children or our grandchildren, and they can mess it up. Okay. So the thing is to teach them, educate them, not financial literacy, because financial literacy, in my opinion, is a bunch of crap. But not and give them knowledge on how to use insurance to build wealth, how to use different things, how to use art to lead well. So that's in 100 years. If you know the billionaires and millionaires and so forth of people, it's 100 years from now.
Mm,
It's 100 years. It's not my granddaughter. I
right.
can leave it for my granddaughter, but I have to teach her, educate her on how to keep that for her children and her children and her
Okay.
children and so forth. Because it's generational is 100 years. It's not the next person that you leave it to.
Okay.
It's how they will deal with it. And so you're educating them. And here again, it's about the habits. You're educating them. And you talked about tracking and things of that nature. You put it in you have to track it. You have to track your finances. You have to be in love with them. And I don't mean love where it's, oh my God, but you have to touch them. You have to feel them. You have to be part of the conversation. For instance, I have a magazine, Scholar Fluence, Financial Fitness for Women. I'm beginning to educate my granddaughter on how to manage that magazine, right? Because I want it to last. I want it to do something. I want it to be in the future. Manage it. Now, whether she sells it when I'm gone or whatever, maybe she can sell it for a good price and live off the money forever and ever, or whether she manages it for the rest of her life. Those are the things that we're talking about that will give our gen our generations more and educate them. So you have to do what you see billionaires and millionaires and stuff do. It's about 100 years from now. Will it still be here 100, 200, 300 years from now? The Hiltons will never be broke, never.
Mm,
And those are the ones we're talking about, the ones that are not even born yet. Okay, we're
okay.
talking about that. Jay-Z and Beyonce's grandkids will never be broke, ever, right? Even if they have one of them that messes everything up, some of them will learn the business, so they will know it.
One of the things that I was thinking about just for my personal self is that when I was in high school, many, many moons ago, we had what we called business, business economics. And we learned certain things, how to write checks,
Mhm.
how to save, what income and expenses, so on and so forth. Nowadays, do you see in the business that you're doing that there are younger people, or the school systems, are they addressing financial literacy programs that's part of the school, so we can at least tap into some of the high school students, or even middle school students, as far as that's concerned, to start getting them in a position where they're thinking, um, or being exposed to financial situations. Are
Mhm.
you seeing any of that?
I have not seen any of that. Here again, you use the word financial literacy, which I think is,
Oh,
just me.
okay, educate me. What would be the proper word?
I would say financial knowledge.
Okay.
Financial literacy is great. Some banks, what they do is, hey, we got this financial literacy program. We're going to teach you how to get credit, how to build your credit, how to buy a car, how to buy a house, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. But it doesn't get into the meat of it, right? So if you want to be financial knowledgeable, you have to know how to work money, right? And how to make money work for you. For instance, what I did for my granddaughter is I went, instead of buying her toy, and I never do, I just don't buy toys. That's just not, I rather I didn't, I didn't do a whole bunch of that when I had kids, right? When my kids were coming up. But what I did is I purchased for her birthday, I purchased her CD.
Hmm.
Okay. So, and for those of us who don't know what CD is, a time certificate, right? You put some money aside for so many months, years, whatever, whatever, and it earns interest. Now, I did it when the interest rate wasn't high. Okay. It's much, much better now, right? But what it says, and all I did was put $500. Now, it is said that she is not to touch that money for at least until she's a good 25, 30, because that's when you start really rolling into knowing how to deal with money, financial knowledge. And so so what happens is that's compound interest. That's how you learn. That's financial knowledge, not financial literacy on credit. Okay, that's credit. Show me how to do some credit. Show me how to really make money work. That's having a relationship with money. That's really getting into the weeds. And you don't see a lot of it. Now you got some classes out there that talk about compound interest, but the really nutty, gritty stuff about compound interest, you don't know. You just kind of brush over it, figure out how to do it. You got the formula, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. But how it affects, just like I said earlier, if I could take that $25, what I was spending on coffee, 25 times 12 times however many years times this, even if I didn't have any interest, what's that look like? What's that look like? Yeah.
When we talk about a financial therapy, we talk about the therapeutic side of it. We
Mhm.
talk about people and their connections or their feelings towards money. I remember reading an article once, and it said with the ATM cards and the debit cards, it has, we're experiencing such a disconnect with our money because we're going to a ATM machine, we're putting in our card, we're extracting the money, we have no record of it, and it's a disconnect
Mhm.
because if you have the money in your hand, like you said earlier, you got to feel it. You got to make a connection with it. And it doesn't just evaporate, or if you go use your ATM cards. So, some of the financial therapy, what would we want to leave our audience with when we talk about if you are in the throes of some financial catastrophes, if you're trying to save your home and you may experiencing, some things that
Mhm.
are beyond your control.
Mhm.
One of the ladies that we were interviewing, and we hadn't even thought about this yet. We were talking about seniors living in poverty, because the point that she had brought, she said, when my husband was alive, we were on both on Social Security. We both had, or he had a pension, but when he passed away, that stopped,
Mhm.
and I was no longer able to afford the mortgage. So
Mhm.
I ended up literally homeless. So somewhere along the lines, they were relying on each other in Social Security, not ever realizing that there would be a day
Mhm.
where maybe one or the spouses was no longer there. And then that burden, that I want to say, maybe burden is not the right word, but
Yeah.
that financial burden now just rests on one person, and that person was not um, equipped to handle it on her own. So some of those things too are your connection with your financial. I know now that I'm working and I'm working, I'm working. I don't know what it's going to look like when I do decide to retire, whether or not if I retire on my own or if I'm forced into retirement, or whatever the case may be. But
Mhm.
as we age and we get older, these are some things that are really concerning to some
Mhm.
people.
Right. And yeah, one of the things is that you said talked about the disconnect with the ATM. We really have it's even worse with Cash Apps and Zelle now, right? It's really
Oh,
worse with that. It's really worse with that because, but one of the things that I do that I started doing years and years ago, and you have to spend some time with your money. On Mondays, I sit down and I have three or four. I have two spreadsheets. Two, I will have more than two, but I have a spreadsheet for the business, and I have a personal spreadsheet, which is a monthly goal, a monthly thing. I know when things are coming out. Then I have the weekly one. The first week of the month, this is supposed to come out, and the dates and all those kinds. So you have to get in touch and spend that time. And this happens even when I don't know when something is going to come in. As a business owner, people say they're going to pay, but that doesn't make them pay. I have it pretty down packed because I have some really decent clients right about now, but I kind of got it down pretty packed. You know, there are some times when there's some shifts in there, and we do need to be able to put some money aside. There's a circle, the pie, right? And this is something one of my mentors gave me a long time ago. And in this circle, it's 100%. And you take your $1 or however many dollars, you take your $1 and you have to divide that $1 up. You divide it into housing, you divide it into food, you divide it into investments, and you divide it into taxes, and you divide whatever it is, you divide that dollar up and you look at that, and that's what you have, that's what people have to do, so that they won't have that disconnect. You have to really, and you have to be disciplined every Monday, rain or shine, broke or not broke. And I never say broke, but um, my abundance isn't quite there yet. My stream of income is not there yet. I have to look at that and know. So I know when things are going to be coming out automatically or not automatically. I know those things, and so yes, you will not always do it right, but you will always know. And that's what I'm talking about when I say financial knowledge. You will always know. And yes, you do have people who are the elderly, who or a woman or a husband or the wife, one dies and they have dependent. And what needs to happen is that conversation needs to happen about what will happen if something happens to one of us. There should have been a life insurance policy somewhere. Okay. There should be some of their some um retirement plans, the beneficiary can be the husband or the wife, and they can continue to get that. So those are the conversations you have. The conversations don't happen. That's a lot
okay.
of times the conversations don't happen. And that's what really needs to happen is a lot of conversation. And to be honest, because we're one may lead one will lead the other before, or they will go together. So that conversation definitely needs to happen.
So when we talk about and we look at financial therapy, why would I need a therapist? Why would I need a financial therapist?
Mhm.
Because when I look at a therapist, I look at someone that I'm going to the office, I'm laying on their couch and I'm pouring out my spirits and my soul because things are not working in my life.
Mhm.
How would that mirror a financial therapist, someone in your profession,
Mhm.
if I'm, because it may be a disconnect, not so much a disconnect, it may be clarity that may be needed in
Mhm.
terms of what would be the difference, if there is any difference at
Well,
all with it.
one reason someone may need a therapist is the reoccurring events like we talked about earlier. I cannot get a hold of my money. I'm emotionally unattached or detached to it. Uh, what is it that really drives me? For instance, one day I bought three pairs of shoes, the same, and they were different styles but different colors. Okay, so what was I on that day? You know, what I mean, seriously. And what was I on that day? What made me do that? Right. And so we have triggers to figure your triggers out. So you need the same reason why you would go to a therapist, a regular therapist for whatever you're struggling with. So if you're struggling with your finances, and here's the problem, a lot of people are struggling with their finances, but they don't want to tell people because we're supposed to be adults, but we never learned how to deal with our finances. And so it takes a lot. It takes a lot for someone to say, I need help with my finances. That's one of the things that I said long time ago, almost 20 years ago. It's like, I need help. And I was in the business. I had 2 degrees in there. Uh, and I was doing accounting, bookkeeping, but I wasn't handling my finances, period. Right. And so once I realized that, then I was like, okay, I basically experimented on myself. And now, like the math scientists usually do, they experiment on themselves and then they try so that they can take it to the world. Right. And so it doesn't make me don't have my moments now. So don't get it twisted. Those 3 pairs of shoes. I, I often use that. Or my other weakness is I'm a single woman and I don't like to cook. And I can have food in there and I will go out. Right. And I'd be like, okay, what'd you do that for? Right. And so what the universe does for me sometimes, what it does, it'll bring me close to non-abundance, I should
Okay.
say, where I got to eat what I got in my refrigerator. And then I can't buy them 3 pairs of shoes, right? And then I'd be like, oh, okay, that's why you got me like this, because if you ain't learned the lesson the first time, the lesson gonna keep coming back to you. The
Oh,
lesson gonna be
definitely, time and time again. And in closing, I'm going to share this. I was a young person with my own apartment, and I needed some money, and I called my dad and asked him for some money because I had a light bill that was due. I went over there to the Crenshaw Mall for those who are in California and Los
Yep, I know
Angeles.
where it is.
And I'm walking through the mall and I see a pair of green suede shoes. Well,
Mm,
what did I have in my closet? I had a green suede skirt. Okay. Well, I had to
mm,
get the shoes because the shoes matched the green suede skirt. So I tell
mhm.
everybody as I sat in the dark and had to borrow a candle because I didn't even have a candle, my dad told me, he said, the best way for me to help you is not to help you at all. And in
Mhm,
40 plus years, I've never ever had another light turned off because I
mhm,
had to make better decisions
mhm,
as to what I did with my finances. And as you
mhm.
said, it didn't mean that I stopped buying those green suede shoes, but I did make sure that that light bill was taken care of first.
That's really funny because every time I want to go out to eat, I say, what do I have? Not every time, but most of the time when I want to go out to eat or if I want to buy myself something, I was like, okay, what bill do I have? Right. And how close is it that it needs to be paid? And then I'll pay that first.
I'm going to say thank you very much, Anita R. Johnson, with Money Wisdom for Women. She is also the editor of Affluence magazine for women. We want to say thank you for taking the time. We hope that our audience will be able to reach out and contact
Mhm.
you.
Our website is moneywisdomforwomen.com. We just got our new website up, so you got an opportunity to go there, right? And then the phone number is 916-306-1501. And then of course my email is moneywisdomforwomen@gmail.com.
We hope that this a part of our series has been very beneficial in terms of how we handle and how we think in terms of our finances. Because for 2023, we want to make sure that we're prospering and that we're doing the things that we said we were going to do in terms of generating wealth.
Mm.
So, Ms. Johnson, on behalf of the Black America Resource Directory, we want to say thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And I am Connie King, the director of the Black America Resource Directory. And you can find us at www.blackAmericaResourceDirectory.com. You can also find us on Facebook, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn, as well so as Money Wisdom for Women. You can also find them on Facebook. And may everyone have a prosperous new year.